Welcome. Who's excited for today? Who's excited? Okay, super thrilled to have you all here. You're the live audience. We're going to start in 90 seconds, and we're going to be live streaming around the world. We have hundreds of people joining us from around the world. So thank you all for being here. Please bring the... Hello, 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 and welcome to Founder Fridays. Who's excited? Woo! Wow, I love the energy here. We've got an amazing live audience. We have people joining us virtually from all over the world. Wherever you are, welcome, welcome. I'm super excited. We are coming to you live from Google HQ in Mountain View. This is actually our first time doing a Founder Fridays in Silicon Valley, the heart of startups and innovation. Pretty cool, right? Woo! I'm thrilled to be kicking it off. I am your host today. I'm Matt Ridenour, head of Accelerator and Startup Ecosystems for the US here at Google, and can't wait to dive in. We've got some amazing content, speakers, panels, demos, and much more planned today. Founder Fridays is really about supporting the startup ecosystem by empowering early stage startups and tech leaders with insights, learnings, and much more for their growth. You can check it out on our website and email us at founder-fridays@google. And if you are a startup building, I want you to have all the best possible resources, and you can actually start building for free with Google. You can use that code, and you can go and sign up for Google for Startups Cloud credits. AI startups can get up to $350,000 to build their products and get started. So super thrilled for that. Make sure you use that to build your company. Today, we're going to be talking about scaling up AI, strategies for growth for your company. And we will have some amazing keynotes and also some of our first ever live product demos. Sound pretty exciting? Awesome. Before we jump in, a few quick housekeeping items. So first, we will take audience questions quickly at the end of each of our sessions. We'll take a few live, and also on the live stream, you can add in your questions on the question tab. And at the end, we would love to have your feedback. We want to hear how can we make these the best for you, the audience. So we'll share a feedback link there, and you can, of course, always reach us at our email. Here's our agenda. Today, we're going to get to hear two fantastic keynotes, one from Dr. Peter Norvig and one from Matt Veloso, VP of Products here at Google. And then we'll have some live product demos from startup leaders and founders. We will hear two great panels about how to build and scale your teams. And then we'll wrap up. How does that sound? All good? How does that sound? Really good? Awesome. And thank you again for those joining virtually. For our first talk, I'm thrilled. I'm excited to introduce Dr. Peter Norvig, Engineering Director here at Google. His team leads breakthroughs in AI, and he teaches at Stanford University on human-centered AI. He literally wrote the textbook, Artificial Intelligence. He really wrote it. It's studied by many in computer science now, and he even hosted an AI class attended by 160,000 students from all over the world. So Peter will help demystify where we are in AI and where things are headed. Welcome, Peter. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Okay. Yeah, I probably need this thing.
There you go.
Okay. Happy to be here. Hello, everybody. So this is me. This is my career. I've made it a hobby to try to collect all the top-level domains. I've been in .edu, short times in .gov and .org, and .com. I've been in big companies and little companies, and Google was both of those. So I'm an AI hipster. I was doing it before it was cool, and I'm glad that the rest of the world has caught up with the excitement that I've felt over these many, many decades. So I want to start off and talk about what is AI? How do we think about that? And I'm a research leader and a manager, but also at heart a programmer. So one thing I want to think about is what's the difference between artificial intelligence and software engineering. So to me, artificial intelligence is building systems that do the right thing. And we can also think of that as maximizing expected utility. And in that way, artificial intelligence is kind of the same as economics and operations research. They're all trying to say, how do we solve these problems correctly? But software engineering is also trying to build systems that do the right thing. It's better to have programs without bugs than programs with bugs. So what's the real difference? And to me, it's that in artificial intelligence, the enemy is uncertainty, and in software engineering, the enemy is complexity, right? So you think, what's a typical software task? It's, say, building the software for a bank. And there's a million regulations and rules and taxes and fees, and it's really hard to get them all right. But there is an exact correct answer down to the penny. And so you know when you're done and you've got it right. But in artificial intelligence, most of the tasks we do don't have an exact right answer. Make a painting of a sunset for me. There isn't one best answer to that. Or even in this photo, is that a dog or a wolf? Maybe there is no ground truth. We don't know. So it's dealing with that uncertainty that separates AI from the rest of software. And I had an example that was evocative for me that really put through that difference. So I got this alert on my phone, and as a good Google employee, I said, this is awesome. Somebody parsed the email from Hertz, put it into my calendar, put up an alert, found the right map, and gave it to me just at the right time. That's awesome. But then they went and spoiled it all by saying time of travel, 23 minutes by bicycle. And to some extent, that was good AI because I live about 23 minutes away from this building right here, and I had been commuting by bicycle, but it didn't really understand what return rental car meant. And I said, well, maybe we could fix this. Maybe we could put in some lines of code to do that. But if we fix this one example with a few lines of code, there'd be thousands of other examples, and they would also need those few lines of code, and they would start interacting with each other badly. So basically, I decided this is out of scope. You cannot fix this problem with traditional software. But this is the kind of problem that you could fix with AI. AI could understand this situation. And so I said, well, let's ask AI. And this is ChatGPT. After turning around the car, should I go by bicycle? And because it's been fine-tuned for safety, it says, well, that depends on many factors. You should consider the weather and the traffic and so on. Right? So it totally missed the point of the question, and it says, oh, I know, when you ask me about bicycles, I'm supposed to really emphasize this safety part. Gemini did better, said no, qualified it a little bit, probably should have just stopped at no. And this looked really good, and I said, finally, you got it right. But then the problem is it depends on where you are. If you're close to an airport when you ask this query, Gemini has this new maps integration, and it says, oh, I know the answer to that. I'll show you the map to where you have to return it. Isn't it great that I now know that? But eventually we'll get it right again. So that's the difference between software and AI. I'm spending some of my time at Stanford in the Human-Centered AI Institute. And I wanted to talk about what that means. And really it means taking into account all the people involved and not focusing just so much on saying, can I maximize this objective? Can I get the right answer? But really say, how does this all fit in as an overall user experience? And it's more than just the users, right? So we have this field of user experience. Say I'm trying to build the AI system for a self-driving car. The user is that person relaxing in the seat there. And yeah, we got to do a great job for them. But we also have to think about the other stakeholders. What about the pedestrians and the other drivers and so on? If they have to be considered too. They aren't our direct customer, but they're part of our product. And what about the effect on society of urban sprawl and traffic and unemployment of taxi drivers and truck drivers? That's all in scope too. And I think too often we say, let's just solve the immediate problem, and then we'll think about those other things later. And we can't do that. We have to involve multidisciplinary teams that think about all of these things up front, because it's much easier to get it right at the beginning than it is to try to tack it on the end. Now, speaking of self-driving cars, here's this display from the Society of Automotive Engineers, and they have these 5 steps of automation. I think they did a really good job on that. So, you can say, where's Waymo, where's Tesla, are they at level 3, or what level are they at? So I have no complaints about that. What I found odd about this picture, though, is the little schematics up at the top, right? So at level 0, there I am, and you see me behind the wheel, and I'm full-figured. I don't quite have a face, but there's a person there. And we get out to level 5, I've disappeared. I've turned into just an outline. And do I really want software that makes me disappear? Well, maybe sometimes I say, yeah, it'd be nice if I could just sleep in the car. But other times I say, no, I don't want to have to give up control. I don't want to think of this as one-dimensional, of saying the more automation I have, the less power and control I have. I want it to be two-dimensional, and I want to choose my spot. Maybe I want to say, yeah, the car can do all the driving for me, but I'm going to look out and I'm going to say, oh, that's a nice scenery over there, go this way, or slow down, or speed up. Or I want to know how much control I can still have, rather than say I have to give it up when I accept autonomy. And so building autonomy on 2 dimensions rather than 1, I think, is key. So what makes this time different, right? So I said, I've been doing this for decades. Here's this graph of up and downs. It starts at 1950 with Alan Turing's paper. I wasn't around then, but I was around for some of those roller coaster bumps in the 80s and 90s. So I've seen this happen. But it does feel really different this time. We have the data, we have the computational power, we've got great algorithms, we've got investments from the community, we've got societies and governments excited about it, and we've got practical applications. Now, a decade ago, I was invited to this sort of singularity conference, and they were saying, now is the time. I didn't quite believe it. And one of the way I did that is I did a search for, within the published AI journals for the phrase "unlike previous," and then I manually inspected all those and said, what are published articles saying that's unlike previous times? And I said, here in 2010, they're saying the exact same things they were saying in 2000 and 1990. But I did it again now, and now we're saying different things. So that's anecdotal evidence that it really is different this time around. And here we see the charts. Everything's going up and to the right, log chart, so it's exponential. That all looks good. Here's another chart of performance on various tasks. The ones that started over on the left, 1998, I was involved in them. Maybe not quite from 1998, but certainly from around 2001 or so. And that's handwriting recognition and speech recognition. And you see them going up at kind of this slope. At that time, we thought that was pretty good. But you compare that to the red line here for reading comprehension, and that slope is a lot steeper, right? So it seems like we got this nailed, and that is exciting. The thing I want to point out here is look at that line where 100% is human performance and how things are exceeding that. Take that with a grain of salt. We are not over 100% in human performance in language understanding. What we are is over 100% in certain tests of language understanding. And the problem is the tests are proxies for what we really want, and they're imperfect proxies, right? So the test says, here's something, if you can pass this and you're a human, you probably understand what's going on. But that doesn't mean if you pass it and you're a machine, you understand what's going on, because machines have this great ability to focus and optimize exactly what they're trained on. And if they're trained on passing the test, they pass the test, but they don't generalize as well to other things in the same ways that humans do. So tremendous progress. We can do a lot, but it doesn't mean we're really better than human performance on all those things. How will AI impact our daily lives? Vinod Khosla just this week says he thinks 80% of jobs will be 80% replaced by automation. That's a lot higher than other people think, but it's going to be a big impact. And I think it is important, as he says, to think about it as the tasks that get replaced rather than the jobs that get replaced. And in some ways, maybe there's going to be more jobs, right? Whenever we created wealth, we've created more jobs. It's just the things that you will be doing will be different. They'll be assisted by AI. And there'll be new things that come in that we couldn't do before. And there's fields like health and safety and medicine and science where we'll see great advances. There's more mundane things like customer service. I'm really interested in personalized tutors. And so one of the projects I did was using these new 2 million token context models and say, let's take that book that Matt mentioned and put it in there and then start playing with it and ask for explanations or summaries of the book and so on. And that seems really promising. Programming is an area that's dear to my heart, and we've seen lots of good advances there. Here's AlphaCode solving this pretty tricky programming contest problem, and it does really well about human level performance again. But as a software engineer, I look at this and say, great that you got the answer right, but I'm not going to let you check this code in quite yet, because here's a code review, and I need you to fix all of these things before you can check that in. And so, to me, the lesson here was this was trained on all the software, open source software that's out there on the web, and half the programmers are below average. So that's about where this came out. And then I did this thing this week, which was I asked all the large language models to solve this problem, which was popular a couple years ago. It's called the Cheryl's birthday problem. And it's an interesting problem because it involves theory of mind. How does a language model think about what other people are thinking about, right? And so in this problem, Cheryl tells one of her friends the month of her birthday and the other the day, and the first friend says, I don't know, and the second says, I don't know, and then the first says, okay, now I know. because of that. And I asked these LLMs to solve it, and none of them could do it. Right? So they all wrote code that made sense and was related to the problem and says possible dates equals the following thing, but they only had one variable for possible dates rather than having separate ones for each of the characters. Right? So and I think what's going on here is that this was just an unusual type of program. And so they're really good at the normal types of programs, but they fail at these more unusual types. And so we've got to do a better job to be able to do that. And I think the way we're going to do a better job is by doing more computation at inference time, right? So we've focused up to now on computation at training time. We've got to do more at inference time. And we've seen examples of that lately. So AlphaProof scored a silver medal in the Math Olympiad, a very challenging test. And Timothy Gowers was very impressed and says it occasionally discovers magic keys. O1 came out, and Terence Tao's been playing with it, and he says it's roughly on par with trying to devise a mediocre but not completely incompetent graduate student, which doesn't sound like great praise, but all the previous ones he would have said were completely incompetent. So we've made a lot of progress. And he went on to say, maybe in 2 more generations, we'll have something that's really useful to a professional mathematician. And that's all because of doing a lot more at inference time, right? And so when we first developed these large language models, we said, we're going to give it a prefix of words, and then it's going to spit out the probable next word, and then the word after that, and then the word after that. To me, that's not artificial intelligence. That's an artificial politician, right? So they're trained. You ask them a question, they just regurgitate what they wanted to say. But if it's in true intelligence, you ask it a question, and it says, huh, that's a tough one. Let me think about that. Let me try a bunch of different things. Let me criticize them, summarize them, compare them to each other. And only after I've done that, now I'll start talking. And these types of models are getting closer to that. How will AI impact the economy? We see these awesome numbers of 50% and 30% in more productivity. Is that really going to happen? If it does, that would be an amazing effect on the economy, almost bigger than anything else we've seen. Because look at this. This is annual growth of real GDP in the US. And if I look at that and say, where's the impact of technology? I say, well, I can see the Great Depression and World War II, but technologies like, PCs came in around 1984, and I don't really see anything. So we have technologies that seem to have a big impact on society, but you can't see it from the GDP growth. On the other hand, look at this chart. So we have the US on the bottom. It's pretty flat at about 2%. But China in 2010, and I wish it went a little bit off to the left, they were at 10%. And I think the reason they were there is because they kind of reaped all this benefit of technology at once, right? So they were behind. They hadn't really deployed all this. And then the Western world had developed it all. And they said, OK, now we're going to start using it. And they were able to jump up to 10%. And then as it infiltrated throughout their society, it went down a little bit, but still doing higher growth than we are. And so I think you could see something like 10% growth going into the future. I was at a meeting a while ago at Asilomar of economists and AI people brought together, and they did a poll of what do you think GDP growth is going to get to. And there was pretty widespread of answers. It went everything from 1,000%, tenfold growth per year, it seems pretty amazing, to the complete destruction of civilization, which probably we want to try to avoid. But the median was about 10%. So maybe that's possible. If it was 5%, I'd be pretty happy with that. Who will AI impact the most? So I enjoy reading science fiction. I really like Douglas Adams. And in The Hitchhiker's Guide, he has this scene, and our space travelers are out in space, and they come across this giant spaceship, which is an Ark, which has got all these people in suspended animation, and the captain. They talk to the captain and say, what's up? And he says, oh, So our scientists discovered that our sun's about to go nova, and so everybody had to flee. And they separated our society into 3 groups. In group A was the thinkers, the brilliant scientists and artists and so on. And in group C was the people who did physical things, the construction workers and the artisan crafts people and so on. And we're group B. We were sort of the middlemen who push papers around and so on. And then they told us they were going to launch us off the planet first, and they were going to follow soon after. But you know what? We never heard from them. And we never heard that they blasted off, and they just kind of forgot about us, right? And so I think the lesson is, if you perceive yourself in group B, think about what you can do to add to yourself to move into group A or group C, right? Because we're always going to need creativity. AI can do some level of creativity, but having that real human touch is going to be important. And at least in the next couple decades, robotics is going to lag behind the rest of software. So if you're doing something physical, you're going to be in good shape. But if you're in the middle, there's going to be a lot of disruption. There's going to be opportunities to shift and do something else, but you're going to have to be agile to recover from those types of shifts. So, Matt, are we going to take questions now? We're going to move to
We'll take some audience questions and virtually as well. So raise your hand if you have a question in the audience, and then we'll go to the live chat as well. We have 1 and 2.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for the talk. I'm just very curious about what's your projection on the quantitative reasoning. I think O1 has shown some, progress from the previous models. I was just wondering, is this like a Q star, or where are we heading towards?
Right.
And then how can we really apply it on production?
Yeah. So it's getting better at reasoning, and because it does this sort of more inference time computation, considers possible paths, still not perfect. AlphaFold, or AlphaProof rather, took a slightly different approach in that it also does a lot of that type of computation, but it's explicitly trying to say, my job is to take an informal description, turn it into a formal description, and then get the actual answer, right? And O1 doesn't necessarily do that. It does a lot of thinking, but all the thinking is more at the informal level. And I think that's really important. And to me, this whole push in the last couple of years has really proven that written language is humankind's greatest invention, right? Better than fire and the wheel and all those stuff. There's so much on the written page, and I've been doing natural language for decades, and I always thought, yeah, there's stuff on the written page and there's stuff in my head. Probably there's more going on in my head, so we should focus there. And now we're saying there's a lot more on the page than we ever thought there was. But I think we shouldn't just say that means we should do all our computation based on English or French or Russian or whatever. I think we should also use these other languages that we've invented. So the language of mathematics and the language of programming and so on. And so if we can do a better job of that, we can avoid some of these mistakes, right? So we do these quantitative reasoning, but it still makes mistakes sometimes. But if we said, as part of your answer, you should figure out how to formalize this, then you should write a program and run it, or submit it to a theorem prover, improve it, and so on. Then we start to eliminate those answers. And I think building that in is important. I think calling out to databases and other sources and so on. I want to be able to do more of that as well. And then we'll avoid these bad mistakes that we see with these models. So I had one example of that, where a friend showed me this example where he asked the language models solve this math problem, and they all got it wrong because they forgot it had to do with factoring numbers, and they forgot that 1 was a factor of numbers, which is easy to forget, right? Because we always write out, here's the prime factorization. It's 2 times 3 times 5 or whatever. And we don't write out the 1. So it just forgot it. I took that same query and said, write a program to solve this problem. And now all the large language models that got it right, now they got it wrong with just the English phrasing. They all got it right when I asked them to write a program. And because if you're just thinking about the English, it's easy to forget one. But if you're writing a program, you'd never say for I equals 2 to n. You'd say for I equals 1 to n. And so they all got it right. And so there's something where this programming language was a better fit to that problem. So I think a lot of what we'll do is say, what's the right language that's the right fit? And do your thinking there. And then the qualitative reasoning will get better.
We have one more from the audience, and we'll take one live stream, and then we'll wrap up.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I have a question regarding domain-specific models. There is one like AlphaFold, and yesterday I saw regarding chip design. So, do you think the domain-specific and general model they will converge, or there will be more domain-specific models? And thank you for writing the AI book. I read it around a decade and a half ago during my undergrad. Thanks.
I kind of like where we are now. We have this idea of foundation models that we build on and we can build specific models on top of that. And I like that because you have to be able to communicate with these models. And if you start with a foundation that knows all of English and knows a lot about how the world works, then it's easier to communicate with that. It's not necessarily that it's going to be better at solving the problem, but you're going to be able to talk to it and use your metaphors and whatever. So I think we'll continue to do that. I think we'll continue to say we'll start with a foundation model, we'll build this problem-specific stuff on top of that, and the foundation model will mostly serve as a sort of interpreter rather than something that actually answers the queries.
To our virtual question, yeah.
We have a virtual question from Francisco Gutierrez, and he asks, how do you envision AI developers working alongside non-technical experts, like ethicists or legal professionals, to ensure that AI systems are both effective and socially responsible?
Yeah, so I think that's really important to involve these types of people up front. And in general, I think one of the great things about this technology is it doesn't have to be sequestered into just the experts. And for a lot of the applications, it'll be the domain experts who are more important than the AI experts, right? So example, I have a friend who's a PhD biologist, and he says, I'm not a programmer, I'm a biologist guy. I can pull some data out of a spreadsheet and make a chart to put into my publication, but that's sort of my limit. And he said, but I have all this data on bird migration. I really wish I could have a visualization of where they're flying. And he said, I knew a real programmer could do that, but I can't. And then he started playing with these AI models and asking it, and he was able to build this on his own, right? And so it was his domain knowledge that was really important. It was not having programming knowledge was holding him back, but because of these tools, he was able to do it. And yeah, maybe if he had an AI expert or programming expert with him, he could have done it a little bit easier, but that wasn't available to him, so he did it himself. And I think we'll see more of that, where the end user will say, I have a need, I need to build this thing, and now I have the confidence to actually get started and get it done. So there's a role for the AI experts, but more important is who are the users and what do they want? And we're building it for them. And now they can have a bigger role and be more involved. And I think that's great.
Let's give a big thank you and round of applause. And Peter will be back up for a panel as well, so you can ask him a few more questions as well. Thrilled to introduce our next speaker, Matt Veloso, VP of Product for AI and ML Developer here at Google. Matt was previously 15 years at Microsoft, leading product and tech teams, and even was the technical advisor to the CTO and CEO. Matt will be sharing a bit about Gemini and some of Google's AI tools with some product demos. Come on up. Matt, welcome. Let's give a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. It's hard to present after Peter. Like, I feel like the local band that is invited to present after Rolling Stones walk out of stage. It's like, no matter how hard you type, people are like, yay. Like, it's like, for those of you who were with me last night, I apologize because I'll repeat myself quite a bit. Like Matt was saying, I'm new to Google. It's been my month number 7. Feels like 10 years so far. Like, it's like how fast we've been moving. It's quite amazing. I decided to come to Google for a few reasons. One of them is because I honestly believe that in this AI revolution that we're just starting, there is no other company that's in a better place to lead the way and evolve and show where to go with AI moving forward. So I think I'm in the right place to see that happening. I always had great admiration for the DeepMind team. I think those folks are just amazing, and I wanted to work closely to where AI is invented rather than outsourced. And therefore, like, it's been a joy to be able to do that, sit down with them, understand where this is going, how we should think about developers as we do that. And so I have the honor of leading a few things. Google AI Studio, which is this place where developers come to just try our AI models, see what they can do, get an idea, then grab an API key, off you go write your code. It's supposed to be simple, easy to use, and not take a lot of work to get started. We also have Google Collaboratory, which is this very popular notebook for Python developers. There are millions of Python developers who use that all over the place, from schools to even internally at Google. One of our biggest audiences is Google employees, like building high-end AI with Collaboratory. Then we have the Gemini APIs and Gemma. Gemma is I will talk a little bit about both. So Gemini is our proprietary model. Gemma is the open model. So we have both. There are different needs and scenarios for each. And then Kaggle. And Kaggle is this super interesting community of ML practitioners, AI practitioners who run competitions, and like you have all this awards and rankings of it's a great place for discovering AI and exchanging learnings, exchanging knowledge. It's a super interesting. If you never tried it, go check it out. And so I believe that we are witnessing the beginning of an industrial revolution. And the people who work with me for years, they know that I almost never talk about a technology that way. I'm pathologically skeptical about hypes, and most of the previous hypes we went through, like, I really didn't really see, like, metaverse. Like, I was like, okay, interesting, not revolutionary, right? I don't see the world changing because of it. I almost never speak of a technology like I'm speaking about it now. And I honestly believe that we are just starting to see a dramatic shift. Like, everything will change, like society, businesses, how you learn, how you do your work, everything is going to change because of it. As part of this, there are lessons we can learn from the past. Those of you who have been, in the software industry for a while, like me, we've seen some big shifts. Like, one of the first big shifts in the personal computing is when we brought keyboards and monitors into a computer. Like, until there was a time where computers didn't have that. To communicate with the computer, you need to know the secret sorcery of things like punch cards, and it wasn't just like sit there and type and watch a screen, right? And in the moment that became reality, like, you have a keyboard, you have a monitor, that thing became a typewriter. It became like you could put that in every desk, every person could use it. That was a shift in like accessibility and democratization of personal computers. The second shift came with graphical user interfaces. And those of you who were there with DAWs and text interfaces, like you remember these applications for editing, birth cards. You have to go like pixel by pixel with your arrow keys and turn them on and off with your space bar. That's how you edited an image back then. And the interesting thing is, it was normal, right? Like if you're asking about how do you do, I open this, I take my arrow keys, click, 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 space bar, and that's how I edit an image. Today we look back and say, my God, how could you do that? Like that makes no sense whatsoever. It's insane that somebody could edit an image that way. But it took this shift to graphical user interfaces for us to see that this could be so much better, so much more natural than what we had before, right? It doesn't just happen, overnight. It takes a while for that shift to happen. And I honestly believe that we will look back at where we are today and ask ourselves the same question, like, how could you use your phone? You did things that way. That's how you use your computer today, right? We will get there at some point. And for that to happen, new experiences will have to be designed. It's not just AI, right? There's a lot. Peter was talking about it. Like, there's what problems are you solving? Like, who is your customer? What kind of problems are you trying to solve? Which experiences need to be true for that to happen? Another shift that happened when touch screens came up. And there are also lessons there, because the company that had smartphones and tablets before everybody else was Microsoft. And those of you who had the first phones from Microsoft, you might remember that what they did was basically taking Windows, squeezing that into a very tiny screen, but keeping the same patterns, the same constructs of the operating system on the desktop, which the problem with that was if you wanted to scroll your browser, for example, you had to grab a tiny little scroll bar that you could barely find. You had to grab a pen, right, and just like touch that thing and scroll. Until somebody else say, this should be easier. You should be able to just pinch and zoom, touch and scroll. It should be that easy. And that insight, that little insight caused such a disruption that costed Microsoft the entire mobile market space. It was the end of Nokia. It was there was a time where people Microsoft might not survive this thing. Like the miss was so big that they recovered from it, but they never got the mobile market space because of that. So the lesson there is just the technology, just having the touch screen wasn't enough. Right? You need the right experience. For your phones to be a thing you can use today and to be useful, there was a lot of work from a lot of user experience people to make that usable. You're just not copying your desktop experience. What you do in your laptop is not how you work on your phone. And that took some thinking. So I look at AI right now, and I was there when GPT was starting and seeing the first people kind of prototyping things with GPT. The first natural thing everybody started to do was to put chatbots everywhere. And I was like, oh God, here we go again, right? I've seen this before, right? Just making users type a lot is not necessarily the best thing, especially on your phone, right? And if you give, I'll give a practical example. If I'm going to do a restaurant menu booking app, option number one is I give you a menu with the dishes, right? And you click on the dish and say, I want this. Option number two, I give you a prompt and you type a whole paragraph describing what you want. I can promise all of you will go to the button, right? It's just natural. So people build this thing and they're like, well, nobody's using that. I wonder why, right? You gotta, for us to evolve for the next question mark here, we gotta solve this. We gotta think am I making this better, right? And we will, by the way, it has no question, it's already happening, but you gotta watch the space closely. So you have to make AI helpful. And whatever experience we build, it has to be better than what we had before. So I mentioned before, so we have this product called Gemini. Gemini is our large language model. Today we offer different flavors of it. We have Gemini Pro, which is if you want more precision at a bit of a higher cost, there is Gemini Pro. If you want lower cost, fast, you have Gemini Flash. And there is also Nano, which is this model that you can run on devices. Like, for example, I have a Pixel phone, and it runs Gemini Nano on device. And then we have the twin, whatever, sister, brother of Gemini, which is Gemma, which those are the open models. That for scenarios, for folks, for example, who they want to control that. I want to be able to take this model and run it anywhere I want. I just want to have full control over this thing. For that, you have Gemma. And we offer those models in 2 different places. There is one place that is part of my team, which is Google AI Studio. And if you use Google AI Studio, you see that the UI is very, very simple. Funny enough, a lot of the people who end up in AI Studio are end users. It's meant for developers. Like, if you're an end user, you should probably be using Gemini Advanced, the assistant. But sometimes people end up there, and like I was talking to earlier this week. I was talking to a bunch of judges from Brazil, like justice, like people who like run court cases and decide on things, and they were telling me, "Oh, we love AI Studio. Like we use it." I said, "What? Like you're not developing?" Like, because like they like to throw large documents. One of the things that Gemini is particularly good compared to any other model out there is this thing we call long context windows, and I'll show some examples of that, where you can throw massive amount of data into the prompt, very large documents, videos, this sort of thing. So for them, that's super useful to do, and they love that the tool gives them control over which model to use. So interesting use case, not exactly my target audience. I love that they do it. The other place where you can use Gemini is inside GCP, the Google Cloud. There is a product called Vertex, and Vertex is the enterprise product. So if you need compliance, you want to use auto. There's a model garden with 100+ models there, like ours and others models there. You want to train your own model. Like you want to do the whole MLOps sort of flow. Like that's the place for you to be. It's Vertex. And obviously that comes with more complexity, but far more capabilities than what AI Studio. AI Studio is not going to have all those capabilities. And if we look at the last few decades of software, like what software has been built, you see that the vast majority of the software you use today, when you're managing your contacts, when you're booking meetings, when you are rating restaurants, when you are booking concerts, like most of that software sits on top of tables, structured data, like columns and rows, that's it. Because quite honestly, that's what the technology could do. What we haven't done so far in the history of software, largely, is automating unstructured data. And so if you watch the last I/Os, there was a moment somebody grabs a phone and goes to Google Photos and asks like, what's my license plate? And Google Photos says, oh, I found a photo here of your license plate. It's this, right? Like suddenly your photos are your database. That, like it's a very new thing. Like you couldn't do that kind of thing until a while back. And this is becoming very accessible. So now you look at your documents, your emails, your messages, your videos, your audio files, and all those things now are data you can reason over and create software around it and automate things. So I'm originally from Brazil, and for those from Brazil, hello. And I was talking about it with these judges that Brazil has 300 million plus people and 100 million something ongoing judicial processes. And it's not because half of the country is suing the other half. That's not it. It's because these things take decades. And so imagine the cost to a country, right? If for solving court cases, things can take decades. The cost to businesses, the cost to people, the faith you end up having the justice system, honestly, right? Like if to win this case, I'm going to have to wait for decades, I might as well just give up, right? It has a cost. that's problem number one. Problem number two is the legal language. Like, I'm a native Portuguese speaker. The language we use in the legal documents, it's beyond me. It's a very specialized language. You have to be trained into that. And so you can imagine somebody with little education trying to discuss their rights, trying to sign a document, trying to understand what the thing is saying. Like, you can feel it's kind of hopeless, right? And so now we have a technology that can solve those things. So I was talking to my friend, Paige Bailey, and I was describing this to her, and I was like talking about, can we show some examples of us reasoning over documents and creating automations on top of documents? She went away 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes later, she came back with this. Let me see if I can play it.
Good morning. Today I'm going to talk to you about how I created an automation using Google Drive, the Gemini API, Gmail, and Zapier to trigger all of these automation steps into something they like to call a zap. So let's take a look at what this automation is doing. Every time I add a new file in a specific folder in my Google Drive, this folder is called Documents, that document, all of the rich text, all of the text, all of the all of the things that comprise that document is sent as a prompt to the Gemini API. So you can see a very simplistic prompt saying, please summarize, is being sent to Gemini 1.0 Pro latest, and we receive an output of tokens around just over 1,000. Once we get this output, this summarized output back from the Gemini model, that output, in addition to a lot of additional metadata from the model, is sent to Gmail as a JSON blob. So you can see here it's sending to webpage@google.com, which is my work account from my personal account, and it's incorporating back not just the model output, but also a lot of additional information about kind of the content, the finish reasons, whether it was the first candidate, etc. Awesome. I've also added a setting such that this check is made every 2 minutes on my Google Drive. So every 2 minutes, Zapier checks my documents folder within Google Drive to make sure that we have new documents, and if there is a new document, that this summarization step is done and an email is sent. But let's go ahead and test it out. So if I go back to my Google Drive, please do not judge me by my personal account. I can move this to that documents folder that we're listening to. So in the annotated bib Ray ecosystem has been moved to this documents folder. And if we take a look at it, we can see that it's a whole bunch of information about, things that would be useful to create around Ray documents and content. Ray is an open source project if folks don't have experience with it. This might be out of date since it's from 2022. But if I head back to my Zapier instantiation, I don't want to wait 2 minutes. 2 minutes is quite a while. So I will go ahead and automatically trigger this step. So we've got this new file. We sent the prompt to the Gemini API. We should receive an email to my personal, to my work email. And let's see. So if I refresh, there we go. Beautiful. So you can see here an email that has been sent from my personal account. It says that this document contains questions and notes on the Ray ecosystem across a variety of things. It also includes links and resources for further learning and development. This is 100% correct. And it also incorporates all of that additional information that we have that we had asked for as part of this trigger. Very, very cool. And the next step,
So
I'll teach
jump
you
at the
how
rest here, but I can promise you, whatever company you go to, including Google, you're going to find a million manual processes like this Think about recruiters, like you receive resumes, you want to create a database of names, qualifications, years of experience, blah, blah, blah. Like every resume comes in a different format. You have to manually go through these things. You receive an invoice, you have to look at the invoice. What is the value? Does it contain certain parts? Oh, this person, this department needs to approve it. I need to route this document there. Like all these things that require people to sit down and go through these things, all of that now suddenly can become an automated process. And it's just the beginning. So when you talk about things that take decades, it takes decades because there's a lot of paperwork, hundreds and hundreds of pages. You just don't have enough people to just go through these things to even do the triage to find out who should be looking at that case. And now you have a thing that can do that. And that's why Brazil is doing an open discussion right now to adopt a LLM for the justice system, like to do this at scale across the justice system, right? It will change the country once they go there. So we're at that point now. And there are all these problems that haven't been solved that will be solved now with this kind of technology. I used to show a lot of my demos of what these things can do. And I started to see so many cool things on the internet that I felt like, I might as well just show what people are doing. Like, and first of all, disclaimer, this is all third-party. Like, these people don't work at Google. They're doing their thing. I just found them on the internet, and we're linking here just so like you should go see what they are doing. This is an example of a Canvas application. Like you saw Apple doing this with iPad, and turns out you can do that yourself in any application. Like you can just do that. You can like recognize an image, send that image to Gemini, ask it questions, like, like are you seeing equations here? What you like, calculate this for me, like, and have Gemini answer. So like you can find bounding boxes in the images. So like there are image editor applications doing that today. It's as simple as calling an API. Imagine if you are an insurance company and you want to help people write inventories of, like, I want to insure my house. I have a bunch of content. I have laptops, TVs, and all these things. I need to write a list, and that's a very painful thing. Like when you're signing up for insurance, going through that writing process is a pain. What they're doing here, like you record a video of your house, right? Like here's my stuff, right? And then you go to Gemini, say, create an inventory of what you just saw, right? And generates that list for you. So again, like the mindset is towards, don't make the user type more. Like, don't go into a chat bot to describe what is in your house. Like, if you record a video and do it there, like Gemini does it. And yes, it might get a few things wrong, but like even if it gets like 70% right, you're already helping so much. And the user then can correct whatever is missing, right? And get there. A similar example to this is somebody who wants to sell a house. And they record a video of the house, right? And they say, now generate a Zillow ad for that video, right? And it describes the house, the kitchen, the bedrooms, the sunlight, the windows, and all these things. You can make it, make it more exciting. So again, make me type less, which is another example. Bounding boxes, right? Understanding that here's an image, find things in the image, where they are. This one with the video game is such a cool one. This person, they make Gemini watch their screen as they're playing Super Mario in this case, and they do a live voice sort of interface with Gemini. So Gemini basically assists the player. So he's like, so what should I go do now? Okay, in this level, you should probably try to find the door, go to this thing. Like, so they have a conversation as the person is playing the game, right? And a lot of people are doing this for software assistance, right? So for example, I get an error message, and I have Gemini look at the screen and help me understand what the error means and what to do with it. It's another way of kind of interfacing with your applications. This guy on the left, he recorded a video of himself doing weightlifting, doing workouts. He brings the video to Gemini and asks Gemini to generate the reps and sets and exercises that he did, right? So rather than typing all of that, again, like don't make me, it's a painful thing if you're doing workouts to go there and just document everything. My watch does that a little bit, like from movement detection, it tries to guess the exercises, but the error is way too high, where here like the precision is pretty good. You can imagine the entire fitness app coming from this sort of ideas, right? So those are, many of these examples I'm showing, they are long context window examples. It's the kind of thing that only Gemini can do, quite honestly, because like you can throw massive amount of data into these prompts and get this kind of responses. There is before I go to this one, there is a very interesting video. This guy, he takes financial reports from like big companies, from a bank. Like those financial reports are PDFs with like 300, 400 pages. And he throws into AI Studio and he goes to Gemini and asks like, generate the cash flow, compare results from 2023 with 2024, calculate this indicator, calculate this, how did you calculate this indicator, why this number is negative. Then he takes all the transcripts from the past several earning calls, throws everything to that as well, and then he starts asking like, what are the management responses on these topics, right? And he just picks those topics and summarizes the responses and everything. Like, so then you take all of that work he does, he takes 40 minutes in the video showing these things. Now imagine if I go back to Paige Bailey's example, right? And I automate all of that. So now whenever I take new financial reports, I throw that into a Google Drive folder. All of that happens automatically, right? Because those are all public APIs. Anybody here can do that. Right? And now I generate the spreadsheets with the cash flows, I generate the summaries with those answers, I just trigger emails with those, like, all of that happens automatically, right? All of that is doable today. This example is quite cool. This is a bit of a longer video. This was a hackathon, and this person talks about a relative who struggles to use a computer, like, and she has to deal with healthcare websites and insurance, all these things, and those sites are very hard for her. So what he does, he builds a Gemini-based accessible UI that dynamically reads the website and generates a very simplified UI for her to go straight to where she needs to go.
Hello, judges. This is our submission to the Google AI Hackathon. So about 4 or 5 years ago, my grandmother was unfortunately diagnosed with breast cancer. But thankfully, she's made a full recovery. But now it's extremely important for her to stay on top of her medical work, her blood work, and her upcoming doctor's appointments. But unfortunately, her medical information is hidden away. It's been moved to online dashboards, and unfortunately, she's not very savvy with the computer at all. And she's not alone in this regard. Over 40% of adults have some sort of physical disability, and 77% of older adults feel uncomfortable navigating new technology. And as tech-savvy people, it's very easy for us to forget that the web is often very overwhelming, especially if you didn't grow up with it. So that's why we built GemUI, an accessible web experience powered by Google Gemini. Now, GemUI was inspired by the recent Google Next conference where Vercel demoed their vision for generative UI, a way for large language models to return rich components rather than just text only. We wanted to expand on this vision by making it universal, allowing generative UI to be applied to any website. We believe that rather than adapting to a website, websites should adapt to your preferences, and we see generative UI as a key stepping stone in creating a more personalized, accessible web. GemUI takes multimodal input to understand the web page, using screenshots and raw HTML content to interpret the current state. Then, using that context, it's able to generate UI that's relevant to the user and build an interface that's dynamic and personal. We built this on the front end using Vercel's AI SDK and starter templates, as well as React and TypeScript. On the back end, we used Google Gemini, Python, and WebSockets. That's enough about GemUI. Let's see it in action. On the left is the GemUI interface, and on the right is the browser that GemUI interacts with. Now, when we go to the blood work page, we'll see that GemUI does a couple of things. One is that it scrapes the HTML and also takes a screenshot of the page. Then it interprets it and extracts out the UI that's relevant to the user's request. Here we can see that we obtained the sign in button, and now we're going to obtain the relevant username, password, and login buttons directly from the UI. We are taking the UI, we're not cutting it, we are actually going to generate the UI on the fly. We see here that we can log in, and in real time, the inputs are piped over to the actual user interface on the right side. Now that we're on the dashboard page, we can see that Gemini, again, goes through the process of interpreting and generating the UI on the fly. Now, we can see that once the UI is finished generating, we have a simple representation of the dashboard that's very easy for anyone to use and see on the left side.
we can interact with the appointments button, and now we can see again that we're navigate to the appointment page on the right side, and eventually we're going to get the upcoming appointment. So this lets getting the information a lot easier.
I'll jump to the, so you got the idea, right? One of the things that Gemini is amazing at is understanding screens. And you can imagine a future not too far from now where the owners of that website, they now need a mobile version, and instead of going through months of designing and development, that they can go to AI and say, just do it in real time, right? Just give me an accessible UI that I can operate via voice or via phone or whatever, and don't make me go through the whole work of doing that manually, right? Just dynamically. There are amazing things you can do with, like, for example, if I take a screenshot, like let's say I go to Google search and I search for whatever, restaurants, and I have one restaurant open. I take a screenshot, go to Gemini and ask, like, what is the user trying to do? It will describe accurately, like, the user is trying to search for restaurants. What's the likely next 3 steps the user will take from here? Well, they're probably going to click on that restaurant that's highlighted because that's the obvious choice, but they might also try to refine the search. So like, if I had an assistant sitting by my side, watching me use my computer, 9 out of the 10 times, I wouldn't have to say what I'm trying to do because they can tell, right? And that's the counter point towards, like, instead of like making users literally type everything, which is kind of going backwards, right? Try to observe those signals and be proactive. So like one of the things I'm super excited about is this idea of smart copy and paste. Let's say you're on your phone, you search for a doctor online, you find information, now you want to create a contact. Like typically what you do, like create a new contact, copy name, copy email, copy phone, right? Like it's painful. One of the things Gemini is amazing at is like you can take the whole content and say, extract this structure, right? Which is name, address, blah, 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 from that chunk of data. It does a great job. So we should like reinvent copy and paste, right? We should have like just take this and put in there. Like you don't just figure it out, right? So that's what I mean, that we will look back at how we do things today and ask ourselves, how can we do, how could you do that, right? And I think, but we have to, you cannot, we talk about diverse teams, right? In the previous presentation, there was a question that you need a diverse team. You need people who are extremely good at user experiences to have those insights, right? It's not just the data science that will do that for you. You cannot just sprinkle AI and hope for the best, right? But so with that, I'll open for questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Big round of applause to Matt. This is awesome to see. We're going to have Matt on the panel right after this, so we're going to have some questions for him there. We're going to do product demos from folks, and then we'll have the panel after that. So big thank you to Matt.
Thank you.
And let's jump over to product demos live here. You saw some external that we got on the internet. These are people that are actually building them. So welcome up to AppTory. Both of the product demos today are going to be from our AI First Accelerator in North America that we just had. Welcome, Samit.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Before I get started, if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking about, hey, is this accelerator, I've got a lot of messages on LinkedIn as well, asking me how the experience was. It was phenomenal. All the speakers you're listening to here mentored us one-on-one. It was an amazing experience. We use Vertex. Vertex is amazing as well. The Model Garden, it's helped us out tremendously in trying out the different LLMs. So highly recommend that as well. Now I'm Sumit. I'm founder and CEO of AppTory. AppTory is your AI teammate, a security engineer integrated into your team. It reviews your code, tests your applications for vulnerabilities, and helps you fix them. Now, when I submit a merge request, AppTory automatically reviews the code for any security weaknesses. And it posts a comprehensive summary of the security analysis directly in the merge request. If there are any vulnerabilities in the code, like a SQL injection, AppTory identifies them and suggest specific fixes. What's great is that I can interact with app theory within the merge itself. For instance, I can ask for an explanation of the recommended fix. After I understand it, I can apply the solution to resolve the injection before merging the code. Now, if you're like me, I'm curious at this point, right? Hey, was there anything else in my code like this that I need to fix? I can ask a question right here to app theory to identify those issues. It can show them to me. It's really quick. And then I can issue a command to app theory to quickly create a merge request to address these other issues and so that I can resolve them. Now, that demo was a minute long. It was quick. And that's how easy it is to use AI to review your code, find issues, and fix them. And that's our goal at App Theory. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Samit. And we'll have Samit on the panel as well. So you get to ask some more and hear some more from him. Clicka, we're going to have Nayul and Ben, her co-founder as well, joining. Do you want to come introduce yourself, Nayul?
Hello, my name is Nayul, co-founder and CEO at Clicka, where we connect different AI models with different hardware options. I'm personally a huge fan of Hugging Face. You encounter so many different models. It's so open. But we found that there's a missing information there since we're connecting different AI model and different hardware, and we actually see different AI models performance across different hardware options, where we saw that the real AI in production information is missing. So we're building the next Hugging Face for inference. And let me invite my co-founder and partner in crime and husband. So we put all the eggs in one basket, no risk management. That's how committed we are with Clicka. So let me invite my partner. Do I click?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben, CTO and co-founder of Clicka. At Clicka, we provide a unified SDK to enable you to compress, optimize, and accelerate different AI models for different hardware with just one tool. So think about it like a bridge between AI software to hardware. Why break your head over it? So today, I'd like to show you inference endpoints. So let's start by logging in. Yep. Done. Okay, so this dashboard pretty much shows you everything that is currently running. So right now we have here a Whisper model for an Android application, a Clip model for a cloud application. Both of them are running on a T4 hardware powered by Google Cloud. Now let's zoom in here on Modelverse. And Modelverse, you can think about it like Hugging Face for inference. Pretty much the missing piece of how well all of these trendy AI models, how well do they perform on different hardware options? So you can know better what to choose. So let's look at a specific comparison. So by tags, let's go to object detection and a Yellow V7 model. So object detection model pretty much just puts boxes around objects. All there is to it. Technical details we can safely ignore for now. In hardware comparison, so CPU, AMD, Intel, different models, and a GPU. So let's go for a GPU, NVIDIA L4. So there are three key metrics we care about here. So first of all is the size. The smaller the better, easier to transport. So instead of 150-ish, it's 40. Basically 75% reduction in size. Accuracy is pretty much the same, which is great. Same like the original that you were happy with. And frame per second, however, how many images can it process? How many? So 8 times more. And if you think about it, bottom line is you pay a certain price, but you extract 8 times more value out of that money. 8 times more customers, however you want to look at it. So no brainer, let's deploy this. I want this. I'll click deploy, I'll click GPU. Okay, name. Let's write, yeah, sure, I'll put this on a mobile app. I'll write Android object detection. I'll write CRUD. I use this for testing probably. I will put US West, machine type. Everything here comes from Google Vertex AI and Cloud Run. So we'll put G2 standard, NVIDIA L4, and now scaling parameters. So if it's inactive, I don't want to pay. I'll put 0. And maximum. So worst case scenario, how much I will be paying? Oh, if there's a lot of demand, probably 10 machines should be enough for a reasonable response time. Theoretically, if it wasn't the compressed one, we should have put here 80. But we need just 10 now. So we'll click launch. And voila. Okay, so right now this thing is being deployed. As soon as it will be done, we'll have 3 things. So we'll have an API key to prove it's you. We'll have a URL that you can send requests to, and you'll have a schema that you can easily follow and know how to send it to get a proper response. That's it. So wrapping up, we have so many stuff coming up as soon as next month, many more efficient models and many more hardware options. So stay tuned also for the launch. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. So we'll have like a lot more models, and like AI Studio and like Vertex AI, like the friends, we have like our compression like toolkit. So if you have like your custom model, you can leverage our toolkit like to downsize your AI model and accelerate them across like different hardware platform. But if you want like off the shelf like efficient model like that are like bulletproof, and we'll be exclusively launching like, and servicing like efficient AI models across GCP platform. So thank you.
And now we're gonna have our panel come on up. Wasn't that cool to see? What do you think? Having live demos, startups that are building them, pretty cool to see it. We're gonna get to hear from them, and we'll welcome back up Peter and Matt as well. So Naul and Samit and Matt and Peter, come on up. And we're going to be talking a bit more about how to build smart and avoid pitfalls in what you're building for your startup. So welcome back up our esteemed panel here. Cool. Welcome. Well, thanks. So we heard 2 keynotes. We heard 2 product demos. I'd love to just hear quickly what gets you most excited about where we are with AI right now. Maybe Samit, and then we'll go down.
So for me, like what's been most exciting in the last year is seeing how much quicker the models have become in responding to our queries. I mean, earlier this year when Gemini Flash came out, it was just like orders of magnitude better, and essentially enabled us to create this user experience where you can actually start to have conversations about your code, right? And get that response back quickly enough that, that it becomes an experience that's usable. Last year, it wasn't the case. It took a lot of engineering to try and build something like that. So yes, large context windows and the low latency definitely are the most exciting to me.
So more usable and faster. Those are good. And cheaper too, actually.
Yeah, but cheaper, I mean, you gave us credit, so.
Reminder, get those credits. Naul.
So like since we're like doing like AI model like compression, like what we've been always like, passionate like about like was AI meeting physical devices and like physical world. And we're seeing like huge advancement like from both sides. So I feel like next year would be like we'll finally like see a lot of like on-device AI, like AI like actually like empowering like our daily lives like on like our mobile devices, and that's really exciting. Like because when AI like enables like robot and it's like deployed like in construction like sites, or it could like help and like aid elderly people like to monitor like them, and it has like so many like different advantages that could make our daily life easy. So that's what I'm excited about.
I guess I'm excited about ease of use leading to democratization, right? So I learned to program, and I felt like this is a superpower. But it took me years and continual study, and not everybody can do that. But now more people can do more powerful things without all those years of study, and I think that's exciting.
Matt?
I'm excited about empowering people. Like I'm not, like, for example, when I see AI examples that sort of attempt to replace people, like I find that extremely uninspiring and probably distasteful as well. And I chose to be in software industry because of how empowering that is. One of my heroes is Anders Hausberg, who he created Pascal, Turbo Pascal, Delphi, C#, TypeScript. Like the guy, I think about how many jobs this one guy created. Right? Like my whole career exists because this guy created these things. And that's what I think AI would do. Right? Like we can think of AI that way, not as this thing does this thing instead of humans. Like that I have no passion for.
So it'll actually create more opportunity than take away. I love that vision. And Peter, to your point, not having us disappear from the picture as human beings, but continuing to be in the loop and maybe using our creative forces in new ways. We only have Peter for a little bit more, so I'm going to turn to Peter first. Tell us a little more, thinking about startups, people going 0 to 1, first building, thinking about AI. What do you think is unique about AI startups now, about thinking about even disrupting industries, thinking about the future?
Yeah, I think it's the speed at which you can move and prototype, and then the ease of taking that to the next level, right? So when we had to write code by hand, you made a prototype, but then there was still a long way towards getting a real solution that somebody would want. But now you build your prototype based on data, and then as you deploy, you get more data, and it scales, and there's less of a chance of saying, I got to start over from scratch, and more of saying, I can keep building and expanding. So I think that's a big difference, and that allows the smaller companies to compete with the big ones.
Absolutely. Matt, maybe building on that for a second, you were just sharing some product demos. We saw some other product demos from founders. Tell us more about, you can build a demo, but how do you then scale that? How do you think about bringing it into production, getting it to a wider user audience? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, yesterday I used this example, like imagine you're going to remodel your house, right? Option number 1, you found that Google has this awesome new tool that you can't wait to use it. You just buy that tool and walk around the house. Where can I'll use it here. Right? The result is going to be this absolute random sort of, there will be holes all over your house, and God knows what you achieve with it, right? The option number 2, you start with like, what do I want my house to be? Like, I want more square footage. I want more light. I want it to be more modern. New baby's coming, I need a room for that, whatever. Define your success. Forget tools, forget technology, define your success. Then ask yourself, what needs to be true? Okay, that wall will have to go down. I will need a new window here, I need a new floor, blah, blah. Okay, which tools do you need to make all of that? There will be a range of things. One of them, hopefully, will be one of our super cool, shiny tools, but there's going to be a range of things. But now, like, you're walking towards a plan, and I can promise, that will get you somewhere. And surprisingly, a lot of people are doing the first method instead of the second, right? They take the AI, they throw AI all over the place, and they hope for the best. And then they write articles saying the AI hype is over, it's not working, right? It's like, so like when you write your company's mission, the red flag is if you have technology in that mission. Like remove no, don't talk about blockchain, AI, but no, like talk like, what are you doing for people, right? Or businesses, and state that, and then go towards that.
Think of the problem. Think of your vision first. Think of your user, and use the tools from there. That's great. Maybe over to our founders. Would love to hear from you all, speaking to people that are building a company here, people that are joining around the world. Two-part question. One is, was AI part of your core vision from the beginning? Were you thinking about it? And if so, how were you thinking about it? And then two is advice for founders who are evaluating, like, what are my options with AI tools? How did you think about that? Yeah, a little bit more. Maybe, Nail, do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, so I'm completely like non-technical like founder, and my partner, he used to work at like Mobileye, and he was one of like the early ones that dove into like MLOps, machine learning infrastructure, where he automated like and streamlined like hundreds of like computer vision models for very restrictive small chip. And so like we started with the computer vision, like, because back then like the vision was the cool thing, but like we still like laid like the same foundation that people like would need like better tools like to productionize better, faster, and we were sure and confident like that like AI could like definitely like empower, and it would be like implemented like in every aspect of our daily life or like work life. So it was, to like your first question, like it always has been part of like our like roadmap project from the beginning. And what was the
and any advice to founders? Hey, there's so many tools out there, or where do I get started? What do you think with the options right now with AI tools?
There are so many open source tools. Like Google has amazing like tools. We're also like we're building like our foundation computer vision model, like data set, and we're using Gemini like to do like super classes, like, and there are so many like cool foundation models like that you can leverage, and thanks to amazing engineers like, who are building groundbreaking like innovations.
Awesome. Samit.
Okay, so I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I saw this truck coming, and I'm like, I got to be on this AI train for the next 10 years.
That was the AI truck.
Yeah, exactly. So, just really said, hey, this is where the future is. And what was happening around that time, and kind of like going back into my history a little bit as well. Like, of course, I started as an engineer, like many of us in the Valley here. And I used to love to code. I was a good coder, but testing was always my kryptonite. It just like felt like, hey, this thing is in the way. I want to get this feature out to the hands of the customers, see them use it, get excited by that. But testing is like kind of like always in the way. And then as I went up the ranks and had larger teams, what I'd find is that every quarter, right, there's this one bug. It's like, didn't we just fix this last quarter? Oh, but that was there. This is another one kind of thing, right? And it's like, but we just learned this lesson, right? Like, why is this happening again? And this thing just keeps happening, right? So I saw this AI thing coming, and I'm like, hey, this is a problem we can solve with AI, right? This is the equivalent of washing dishes, right? You want to write code, you want to build a feature, you want to build a product, you want to get it in the hands of customers, but you don't want to do the dirty work of testing it, right? And where it gets really bad, which eventually was the thing that really pushed us, was we all started to get breach notices, from our banks, from the hospitals, from phone companies. Like, it's essentially all of our data is for sale on the dark web because software is buggy, right? So we were like, we got to go solve this problem. And that's really where Aptory started. So we always wanted to be essentially an AI teammate, something that's looking at your code, testing your software, finding the weaknesses, helping you fix them, so that you're building secure and data breaches don't happen, essentially.
So important. More secure software as we're deploying. Peter, I want to go back to you, and then I know if you've got to run, that's okay. One more, just a word of advice to people that are thinking about AI, building a startup, and particularly people saying, I feel like I need a PhD in AI to just get started, or hire a PhD on my team. What would you say to them?
Yeah, we were talking about that because I talk to so many startups and they say, where can we get the PhDs in AI? Because Facebook and Google got them all. And my answer to that is, no, that's not what you need. And our colleague, Cassie Kassaroff, had a great analogy. She said, that's like saying, I want to open a restaurant and I need a PhD in stove design. No, you don't need that. What you need is a chef who says, I'll tell you what stove to buy, and I know how to operate it. And more importantly than that, I know what our customers want to eat, and I can make what they want to eat. And I don't need a PhD to do that. So I think that's where most of the startups are. You don't need the PhDs. The PhDs are building the services that you get through Google, and you can say thank you, but you don't need them on your team. You need someone who understands what your customers want, and someone who can build the workflow and the data acquisition and curating and cleaning and serving and deploying, and that's the hard part. Yep. The AI part's the easy part.
And you're probably the one that PhD cooking the dishes and the rest of the canola.
You want a real chef there. Yeah, right. No, that's great.
But I do apologize because I do have to go. I double booked myself and I got another event I have to run off to. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. We really appreciate it. We'll keep the rest of everyone on for a couple more minutes. Peter is very in demand. He's heading to another speaking engagement, but glad that we got him here. Maybe, Matt, do you want to close out that thought, and then we'll go to the audience? Any other thoughts on you're building your startup? Do you need a PhD in the room? Tell us more. How can you get started?
Yeah, for example, my team who builds AI Studio and these tools, like the skill set I look people who have great user experience, great understanding of developer tools. It's a very different skill set. A friend of mine, Nicole Forsgreen, she wrote a book called Accelerate. Her company was acquired by Google years ago. She's a researcher, and in that book, Accelerate, she looks at what variables correlate with, I'm oversimplifying, sorry, Nicole. What variables correlate to high-performing engineering teams? Like, what are these things you see engineering teams doing that, like, you can tell that's a high-performing team, they're building great product. And very, like, unbiased, very objectively. Like, for example, the teams who ship often tend to perform better, right? Because if you ship often, like, you probably have automated tools, you probably iterate faster, you probably have, like, there's a whole bunch of things that probably are in place. There is a strong sign that you are performing better. One of the variables that correlate with high-performing teams she found out in the research, unbiased research, is diverse teams tend to perform better. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why that's the case, right? Like, for example, if you're building computer vision models and you only test that on white males, you're probably going to find out that there's going to be problems later. Like, if you have a diverse team that's there, like, they're more likely going to catch those things. Likewise, if you're designing experiences, like, having an amazing data scientist with a PhD might not be the right person to design the UI for that thing. Like, maybe they are, but often that's not going to be the case, right? And that's why you want a hybrid sort of team with different skill sets to build the right kind of product, right? We want to leverage that.
I love that. User experience, understanding, developer tooling, and a diverse team. Let's jump over to the audience. Do we have our microphone out for folks? And raise your hand if you have a question, and you can direct it at one person or for the whole group, and we'll go right there first.
Hey, Matt. So I saw in that video, Gemini's object localization capabilities look pretty awesome. GPT is not so good at that, at least when I tested it, which is great. My question is, Are the localization abilities as good for UI components, and can it detect between interactable and non-interactable ones?
To a point. Like I won't say it's perfect. Like it's not, right? Like it's one of my areas that I'm I love robotic process automation sort of things, right? And understanding UIs. I always love that space. I played a lot with it. We're making progress there. Depending on how far you want to go, use, like, for example, like take a screenshot and say, find the button blah on the screen or find, I mean, it does a reasonably good job. It might fall short depending on the, the kind of design style and a bunch of things. But that's an area we are working on to make it better.
Nice. It's good to hear you guys are looking into that.
Yeah.
Delving into that. Yeah.
Hi, this question's from Matt. Thank you so much. You talk a lot about UI user testing and making sure that that product is good for the users. At my company, DAX, we also believe the same thing. So I just want to hear your thoughts on the best way to do user testing. We are trying to figure that out right now. We have users onboarding right now, allowing them to test the new features as they're paying for the product, get unpaid users to test it before the launch. What's your opinion and preference to launch quick and fix it, or do a soft launch, test it, and then what's your opinion there?
We have the same problem. I think that whatever there is when you talk to user researchers, which I'm not, and I'm absolutely ignorant in this discipline, but I get lucky to work with a lot of smart people in that area. There is a range of things they can do, right? Like from quantitative to qualitative research and hybrid method and all these things, right? And ultimately, in my very simple mind, my question is, what is the fastest way I can test a hypothesis? There is a fact of life that us product managers have to accept that most of our ideas are really bad. Right? I'm sorry if that's news to you. You probably don't but most of our ideas are really bad. If you accept that as a truth, then your question is, how do I test my idea the quickest, cheapest possible way and fail really fast, so I end up with just the good ones and then I scale them, right? That can be done in a minute. You can build a mock-up and slides, right? And just show it to a user, right? And there's a method to how to, you cannot be biased, right? You cannot just tell the user, don't you think this is awesome? Because then they will agree with you and that you're not proving anything. But there's a whole, but the point is find the tools where you can test hypotheses quickly. Some of them might be just releasing fast. Some of them we don't even need to build to find out there was a bad idea. And celebrate failure. It's the thing that you have to create a psychological safety with your team where they're not measured by being right all the time. That's not the point. The point is they're measured for finding the right things and go amplify them quickly, right? That is the kind of mindset that to drive.
Love that. Thank you.
Let's take one from the virtual audience.
Some viewers have a suggestion around a roadmap to build an AI business would be a good resource for all. Any thoughts on that?
Building an AI business, I might not be following.
Can we rephrase that? Or
for a roadmap, the question is if we have a roadmap. So there are some, yes and no. We do. So if you look at, for example, Vertex, they publish a roadmap, and AI Studios kind of following. We'll start doing that more formally. That also depends on aligning with DeepMind and the things they're working on. The challenge with that, I'll be very honest, is every now and then there is a lucky surprise. Some researcher just strikes gold out of nothing, right? They just I figured this thing that just makes the model twice as fast. Or just out of luck. There wasn't a roadmap, and now okay, we gotta just do something about it.
Wow.
And that sort of breaks a little bit our ability to be so predictable. I think the reality is we're trying our best to give the predictability, but it's a very fast-moving space where people are striking gold every other day, and then we have to adjust.
Fantastic. We're going to wrap with final word to anyone joining from around the world. What would your biggest advice be? Something that you wish you had heard when you were just setting out, starting your company?
for me, it's always, you got to iterate as fast as you can, right? Like it's sometimes talking about what to build, what the prototype should be takes longer than actually building the prototype. So roll your sleeves up, just, get working, build something, get in front of users, get the feedback, iterate, improve, and just keep improving.
That's awesome.
I wish like we were not like doing very deep tech like stuff, and because like Matt again Peter said, like being agile like today is so important, and you don't know like what's gonna happen again like tomorrow, what kind of like foundation model like will pop up, like or what kind of like new neural architect like will come up, like so being able like to like adopt like different like technology quickly. I'm so jealous of people like who are like drilling vertical deeply and like talking with like clients obsessively, and I think like the success is there, being right next to your clients.
It's great.
Yeah, I'll say a thing that I said yesterday that those like I've been programming computers for more than 30-something years. And the longer we've been programming computers, the harder it is, because like you've been so conditioned to think about things and problem solving certain ways with algorithms. Things are changing now. And the way we solve problems now are they're going to be radically different. And the problem with that is I have to unlearn. Like think about how hard it was for you to learn how to ride a bicycle. Now imagine you trying to unlearn how to ride a bicycle, right? And that's why sometimes even the folks who are sort of new in this space, they come with the better ideas because they're not conditioned to think about, so like you have to suspend your disbelief for a moment, right? Assume everything is possible, the magic exists, right? Think about the biggest problems you have to go solve, right? And then go find which AI and technology can do, because there's a good chance it might be possible now and wasn't until a few years ago. Yeah. And great, you found so that's the amount of problems that are there unsolved are infinite, right? Like just like open the mind and go find them.
It's fantastic. Thank you all to our amazing panelists. Big round of applause. You can leave your mics, and then I'm really thrilled to share that we have one more panel, and then we'll wrap up. So thank you all. Yeah, we're going to talk about building your startup and your team. How do you get your team together, use the latest tools, hire the right people, and support them and motivate them? So we have a few more amazing folks coming up. We have Svetlana, Tulsi, Anurag, and Dimitri. Come on up. Big round of applause for all of them. Awesome. And this will be our final session for the day. Awesome. Okay, well, great to see you all. Thanks for joining. We're really thrilled to have you. So why don't you go introduce yourself a little bit, talk about a bit of your work, what you are building, and maybe something that's interesting to you about this time we're in. Do you want to kick us off?
Yes. So I'm Svetlana Obradovich. I lead the talent intelligence team here at Google. In translation, I'm actually part of the recruiting organization. So what my team gets to do is guide and advise Google about the global footprint, but from the talent-centric perspective. What is super interesting for me to do is I've been in tech now almost 2 decades, very different types of companies before Google, majority of them large, some small. So I have been in space of AI before. And so this narrative around PhDs actually resonated with me because I just had a flashback to 2007 in a meeting with a client who said, at a large company, who said, look, like, don't bring me more PhDs. At this point, like, I really need a talent that's going to help me think about monetization and applications and customers. I can't spend time fantasizing what's going to happen 20, 30, 40 years from now. So that little anecdote that happened in panel 1, like, really was a flashback.
That's so fascinating. Yeah. The people building the thing, that's great. Let's continue on, Dimitri.
Awesome. Thanks again for the invitation. So I'm the founder and CEO of Pasio. My background is technical. I do have a PhD, so I'm kind of the counter here.
You do it all.
And,
That's great.
And what's interesting about my background, I've built 3 large PhD research teams across 3 organizations. So during my research at Caltech and Harvard, I built a large research organization and team. Then I led an aerospace company where we had 10 PhDs. So again, counter trend. And at Pasio, we are doing AI development, where we also have a highly research-centric team. But what fascinates me right now on this topic is that the way companies are being built right now, it's not just that we don't necessarily need the PhDs, but what is even more interesting is that AI itself right now is becoming a part of the workforce more than any time in history. Like, this is being put on steroids right now. And when we are building organizations right now, we've some of you in the audience have probably seen like comments from Sam Altman and others that future companies could be built with just a handful of people and AI. And this is true. At Pasio, we've seen this ourselves, that we were able to reduce the size of the team while 10xing the amount of code output, and we are not even tapping close to the potential of AI workers. And I think, especially now as AI evolves, we will see artificial intelligent agents and entities. Right now it's just AI, but it looks like it's going into the world of AI entities, really. They will become parts of the workforce, and we will be interacting with some of them as we are interacting with humans. Maybe I'm a little bit looking further ahead, but it feels like this time is coming, and it's coming way sooner than anybody expected. So this is a very interesting thing about building teams. Like, it's not just hiring PhDs or non-PhDs, it's also how do we integrate AI workforce into our work. That's a very fascinating topic that to answer your questions of what excites me, this is a very exciting topic for me right now.
Awesome. Anurag.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anurag. Looks like Lucy didn't make it, if you can't tell. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Electric Fish. I'm a mechanical engineer by training. So I bring a slightly bit of different perspective on what excites me about the moment in AI. Our product at Electric Fish is a physical infrastructure, a big battery, which can provide backup energy to communities in case of outage scenarios, but also during real-time or non-crisis situation, it can do very fast electric vehicle charging. And the layer of digitization, or AI, if you will, is about how do we control these assets, how do we predict when the vehicles are coming up and when exactly the next energy crash is going to happen. And this is what is very exciting for me. I'm getting first-hand experience in learning how to use data, how to use machine learning tools, and what is the next foundational model to be built on energy optimization. As AI has kind of made its way into workforce, as Dimitri just said, how exactly it makes its way to physical hardware, that the things manifest in something which is in your hand or something which you're driving, or the electricity which is reaching your home is very profound to me. And that's what's very exciting for me on what exactly is next.
Love it. Maybe coming back this way, Anurag, tell us a little bit more about early on in your journey, starting your startup, building a company. What was the most valuable lesson that you learned, particularly around overcoming some challenges? I'm sure there's challenges in building a startup. And also, just talk more about building your team. How did you find the right people, get them motivated, all that?
So I'll start by talking about the team. For me, the first thing which I look for is, are they getting excited about the vision at the company? I share what we're really doing here. That's how the interview starts for me. And I could see by the questions which they're asking are they buzzing with ideas on what exactly we're doing and how exciting it is for them. So that's kind of the first thing which tells me if they're really gonna be a good fit, because the quality of work is one, but definitely the mission is what keeps you going, because times definitely gets hard in a startup. And after that, it's generally a 2 to 3 month period, which is kind of a trial period in which you see if it's a good fit. Are they working well with others? Are they super smart? You could tell. So yeah, that's how we have built this team. It's a very small team still. We are looking for certain people, both in data and in thermal engineering. And for me, I was thinking about these questions because Matt gave me these questions before, and what exactly is the most valuable lesson? There are a few things, but what I'm still working with is the balance between the urgency which you feel in a startup, that you need to do it really quickly, or you miss the mark, or like somebody else will do it faster than you. And also, you just know that it's a long haul. It's not like you keep pulling all-nighters 5 days and the next week you're just sleeping. So it's just like finding where exactly the right balance is. So feel the urgency, but also balance to understand that it's a long haul for you to like build a company is something which I'm still executing on.
So sustainability, your company is building sustainability with clean electricity and also sustainability for you as a team for the long haul. That's great. Dimitri, tell us more on those two things. Most valuable lesson you learned overcoming challenges, building the team, supporting them.
Yeah, so as you start running companies, you realize you constantly learn. And the key lessons, the number of lessons, there are books written about it, right? So it's just whatever I share right now is probably one random or a set of random comments out of hundreds of lessons that you learn as running a company. Things that immediately come to mind is perseverance. If you are trying to build a company with an audacious mission, you have to be prepared to grind, and this has been kind of the number one lesson. I thought I've been prepared, but you really only get ready for this as you go along and learn that eating glass and staring into the abyss is the part of the startup journey, and this expression is spot on. What's exciting is that on the same day, if you are thinking of starting a startup, on the same day you experience both the highest highs and the lowest lows, and this just the speed with which it happens is ridiculous. You can get a best customer offer or the best transaction, and things start work, and then next minute you lose $1 million contract, and it just goes up and down all the time. So you just need to be prepared to grind, and this is where it goes back to the team. You need to build an organization, people around you who are able to be a part of your journey. Because no matter how good we are individually, it takes many people to build something that's meaningful. And it is both important on the actual team, on the engineering team, and on the executive advisor team. So for me, it's been insanely helpful to have advisors and board members who's been supportive of me. I would not be anywhere near in my life where I am right now if I did not have those people who I know have my back no matter what, both my family and in my businesses, my investors, and a close circle of friends who's been funding all of my companies for years. So building that both foundational layer, and then obviously building strong teams of people who show up all the time and don't give up. It is a very, very, very critical component of each startup's journey.
Wow.
If I may, I love what Anurag has said, that you start your interview process with really testing the candidates around your vision, the vision of the company. Do they buy into your dream? Because as Steve Jobs famously said, you have to give people a bigger reason to get up in the morning and come to work beyond the paycheck. And you truly starting the interview versus like, let me test your technical chops. You really first want to know, like, are they in this for the right reason? So I love that you said that, and I cannot more underemphasize how important that is.
It's fantastic. And building on that, maybe, so you've been at Microsoft, Meta, Google now, helping build teams, find the right talent. Tell us more, any misconceptions people have about building the right talent and also motivating them.
Yeah. So I would say I'll build on the very first. Some first misconception is the sort of overestimating the importance of technical skills. And the reason for that, well, I was in Microsoft. At a certain point, I got the privilege to be aligned to this small, tiny project called Red Dog. Some of you may know it today as Azure. It was a team of 65 people, all PhDs. They all thought we were on to something big, but nobody really knew about what they really will become. And so through that, we had insanely hiring bar. I had first role that I needed to help them fill. We interviewed 67 candidates. And this role was like 2-3 years of industry experience.
Wow.
All 67 were no hire. I finally showed up to the meeting and said, what are we looking for? I don't like, and the technical chops have to be this, this, and that. No, they don't. And so that would be the number one misconception. Number two would be, as your startup starts to grow and as you start to scale, do not think about accelerating your hiring process because that will lead you to success. There's so much to do. You need to have a lot of people. So you just need to accelerate that. I joined Meta when Meta was shy of 20,000. They were super ambitious hiring goals, like let's grow the company to be 80,000 people and let's do this as fast as possible. And I obviously didn't even have enough recruiters to do that. And so overnight, I get like an envelope of my own headcount, and I'm told, go hire 30 more recruiters so that we can then meet this super ambitious goal. So off I go and engage in that, and we decide over weekend to organize speed interviewing. The worst decision I've ever made in my career. So we ended up doing speed dating, speed interviewing. So we ended up doing 2 interviews per candidate instead of 5, which was the standard, I'll say. And we make some really bad decisions. Lesson learned, 2 is not enough. 5 is optimal. Anything over 5, you get diminishing returns. So do not accelerate your interview process. Take time to hire right people, and you don't want to hire people for what you need right now. You also want to hire people for what you will need in the future because you want them to stick around. And I would say thirdly, I think it's an interesting one. When you're a founder or even in a larger company, if you're being asked to lead this new division, et cetera, at times, like, yes, you need to be in the weeds in the recruiting process. You need to be the one making the final hiring decisions. But ultimately, as a founder, there will be a moment in time where you will need to dedicate your time to bigger, greater, more important issues, and you will need to let go. So don't become the bottleneck in your own process, but along the way, design the process that does have checks and balances, and trust people around you who will partake in the interviewing process, that they will make the right decision for the company. Don't be the founder says, I get to be the final sign-off person on every single candidate. Yes, that works if you're a company of 10, 20, but when you start growing, is it going to be sustainable?
Wow. Really great knowledge. I already see some some rounds of applause for that. That's really cool. We just have a few more minutes, so why don't we go one question here, maybe, up here, and then we'll take one virtually, and then I think we'll kind of close it out after that. Yep.
Hi, Svetlana. I hope I'm saying that properly.
Yes.
So for early stage teams, we are purposely keeping it so small and so lean with the cost of capital, right? I always let other people have final say when we bring people in, but we have made the mistake of doing rigorous technical testing and realize that they can't integrate into the culture of the company.
Yeah.
And so what do you recommend with such a tiny team? How do you scale down that thinking to apply it to where we're at now?
Wow.
Thank you.
I would say, as part of the interview process, you also need to assess candidates' ability to really collaborate, candidates' ability to be the team player. Because having a startup, obviously not an individual sport, it is a team sport. And so build into your assessment process as well, how will this person complement the team that you already have, and how will this person play in a sandbox together with your team? And that is just as equally important as the technical chops. Like, I actually would say maybe even more so important, because technical chops, eventually that person can further upskill themselves working with the team side by side together with the team. But if they're not a collaborator, they don't fit in, it's just going to become a big problem down the road. So do look for people. I always call that a multiplier. And even today, if I assess anybody to join my team, I look for people that will generate the energy. And that is a make it or break it for me. I don't care if they're a subject matter expert on this topic. I want to know, can they, in difficult moments, generate the energy for the team when we hit the roadblock, when we fail? Because it's an important thing to do. Yeah.
Why don't we do one really quick one from the audience? Do we have a fast one?
Startups can face challenges competing with larger companies for talent. What are some creative strategies you've seen successful startups use to attract and retain top AI talent?
Great question.
Quick responses from anyone.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I can share two very clear tactical things that we discovered. So first, at Pasio, we've been very successful hiring insane talent worldwide because we're a software company and we could hire talent worldwide. So our CTO, for example, is in Morecambe, UK, which is 2 hours from Manchester. And he is another PhD. He likes what we do. He's been leading co-leading the technical team with me. We would not be able to afford a person of his education, stature, and experience if he was living in Silicon Valley. It would be just completely. But you need to realize that there are people like this scattered all over the world who are insanely strong, insanely talented, but they do want to have a giant house, live on the ocean, whatever, right? They don't want to live in the middle of Palo Alto or San Francisco where things are completely out of reach for most people. And that's one of the big realizations. And the second tactical thing, my biggest hiring success in my life, hands down, was with my first company. We were building space launch system, single stage to orbit propulsion system, which was super exciting. So it was much easier to hire people. But on a tactical level, we did, me and my co-founder at the time, we did a full day at MIT Career Fair, where we basically just talked nonstop. And most people think of career fairs for students, but what we ended up hiring senior researchers and postdocs and associates, not just students out of that. So we ended up hiring 5 PhDs with like 20 plus years of experience. And that was just a huge revelation for me that you can tactically do that.
Wow.
This is an interesting one. My strategy is to bring them along on the ride, overly communicate what's exactly going on in the company, and then have an individual focus on how exactly their career trajectories are and can we help them. So that's my strategy. And second thing is just be prepared. They could go.
It's awesome. Final word there, yeah.
I would just quickly add to that. I think nobody has it easy, regardless if you're a small or large company, because the market is so dynamic. Opportunities exist; they're endless. So really, then deploy all strategies. Have an open mind, but look for talent that will buy into your value proposition and into your vision. And that is how you're going to build for success. And I would also just quickly add, there's a lot to be said about this top talent. Don't always assume, unless like you're Peter and Matt earlier, right? Like obvious rock stars. But as you think about this top talent sometimes taken out of context of one company and plugged in context of another company may not always perform at top. Because so much of the top talent as well, what contributes to somebody being top talent is the ecosystem that they've built around themselves. So don't just assume just because somebody told you so-and-so is amazing here that they will be amazing in a different context in a different company.
Fantastic final words. Can we give a big round of applause and a huge thank you to our panelists? Thank you all. Awesome to have you. I think that is it. We just have a few final things before you log off or you depart. Again, if you didn't yet, supercharge your growth. Leverage these Google Cloud startup credits. You should definitely use those. Up next, in a month from now, we will be live from Montreal, Canada. You can join us on decoding funding code, thinking about science and capital and raising venture capital. And last thing, your price of admission. Please give us feedback. We want to hear from you all. You can use this QR code. Share how was the event for you? What did you learn? How can we improve? We want to make it great for you here in the live audience, and for you virtually. You should see that on your virtual screen under the feedback form. Thank you very much. You can always reach out to us at founder-fridays@google.com. And huge final round of applause for being part of this. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.